You didn't experience the wrong thing, you learnt the wrong lesson, and it's holding you back. Some of you are fighting your past because you attached the wrong meaning to it. That thing that happened to you is over, but the meaning that you attach to the experience is guiding your everyday actions and beliefs. The conclusions you draw from your experiences shape your life. The problem isn't necessarily the traumatic experience, it's the story you now tell yourself because of the trauma. You healed, but your mindset didn't. Let's fix that. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Olaoluwa, aka The Laulu Effect, and it's good to see you again. I am in my church bests, and I knew that before I take this makeup off, it would be a misservice, or it would be whatever the word is, to not turn up and film again. I'm really working on this consistency. Let's see where we can go with it. So today I wanted to talk about the lessons you are learning. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I speak to a lot of people, and sometimes the narrative they've told themselves is actually causing them more detriment than good. Today we're going to talk about learning the wrong lessons and how we can actually reframe some of our experiences so that we can get what we need out of the lessons and the story and move on. Literally, move on. We spend a lot of time learning lessons, taking in data from our experiences, but the problem isn't necessarily what we experience, it's the lessons we have attributed to those experiences. It's the conclusions we make because of that experience. And that's what I want to talk about today. Something happened, it hurt, but instead of extracting wisdom, you extracted fear. Instead of extracting the story, you've now taught yourself a narrative that isn't true about an experience that was true. How we learn to shape the wrong lessons from the stories we tell ourselves. Most times, the reason why we create narratives because of our experiences is because pain was so severe from that experience that we have nothing else to tell ourselves except what we believe is true because of that pain. Now, it could have been a heartbreak, it could have been a disappointment, it could have been the loss of a job, loss of a family member, it could be the grief of a life that you're no longer living. Yet somehow we are teaching ourselves daily the story we should be believing about ourselves and about that experience. Someone once told me, pain is a master teacher, but it is not a good mentor. And for many of us, the reason why we teach ourselves the wrong stories is because we have extracted the wrong narrative, the wrong truths from that experience. And so oftentimes when we allow pain to mentor us, when we begin to shape after pain and painful experiences, we are extracting the wrong truths from that story. But rather, we need to allow pain to be the teacher. The teacher's job is to appear and let the lesson sink in, and then they move on. The mentor's job is to stay with you and continue to guide you through every other experience. Pick one. For many of us, we are generalizing one moment into a life identity. And you can understand why that could be really unhealthy, right? Because if one moment teaches me everything about my process and the life that I'm going to live, that could be problematic if I don't learn the right lesson. The brain is attached to creating meaning out of our experiences, right? This is why we have different attachment styles. This is where delusion comes from, and all these funny TikTok trends where we say, oh, it's delulu and all these things. We know these truths, but how do we actually apply that to our day to day? It looks like this. If you experience a scenario where someone rejected you, maybe you liked them and they didn't like you back, and thereafter that experience, you have taught yourself that people don't like you. That is an example of extracting the wrong lesson, because that person's rejection of you shouldn't become your life's truth. But for many of us, we imbibe that and we regurgitate it and we tell ourselves the same stories and then create the same scenarios, the same kind of experiences over and over again. Why? Because we have continued to have the same belief. The same belief will create the same outcomes. And so oftentimes, if you're trying to change behavior, if you're trying to change an outcome, you have to change the belief system. You have to change the root. You have to change the seed if you want a different harvest. And oftentimes, when we experience rejections or when we experience something more than once, in many of those scenarios, the common denominator is you. And so you have to review why you are consistently having those experiences. And it's not just because those people see you in a certain type of way. Sometimes it's what you have believed about yourself that perpetuates that experience, because the brain is going to look for confirmation bias. It's going to look for the confirmations of experiences that tells you that narrative. Your job is to see and discern the lie and shoot it down. For many of us, another thing that makes us learn the wrong story or tell ourselves the wrong truth from that experience is because we are trying to protect ourselves. We copy the behaviors that keep us safe as opposed to leaning into the behaviors that help us grow. I know what that feels like. I have spent a lot of time being a youngest child, and one of the things that I experienced growing up was just this feeling of, no one really cares what I have to think. Everyone's going to go about their lives and do their thing, and they're just going to leave me behind. And then, and so I believed this lie for so long that what I had to say didn't matter. The decisions I made didn't matter because no one else cared about the decisions that I make, which is obviously a lie. I'm very loved. But I think I told myself that to protect myself from the confusion that I felt as a child when I didn't understand why I didn't have the attention I wanted, or didn't have the things or the experiences that I felt would affirm the kind of love I wanted to experience. And so you grow up with this narrative, and then you get into an adult relationship, and all of a sudden the person that you're in a relationship with doesn't care what you have to say. Well, no. Where did the belief actually come from? Sometimes the behaviors that kept us safe were things like shutting down. It helped us survive, but it's not helpful and no longer useful for growth. Maybe sometimes you overworked because that's how you were able to stay relevant. Maybe you overperformed because that's how you received affirmation. Maybe you became hyper independent because no one showed up for you in the way that you needed them to. I mentioned how when I was younger, I silenced myself a lot because I felt like no one was interested in what I had to say, and how opposite from the truth that was. But these are some of the things that I was telling myself. And when I believed that truth, what I ended up doing was shrinking even more. I ended up withdrawing even more, because now all of a sudden in a conflict, I don't have the confidence to present my own views or my own concerns because no one cares. Or that's what I was telling myself. Let's talk about 3 ways in which you can know that you have been learning or have been applying the wrong lesson to the experiences you've been having. Number 1. Your default is self-blame, even when you know logically you're not responsible and you know better. Number 2, your confidence rises and falls based on people's response to you, as opposed to it coming and emanating from an internal place of divine confidence anchored in who you are before God. Number 3, you avoid situations where you can actually take advantage of promotion because of an opposite internal environment. Something inside you is saying you don't deserve that, or it's not a good fit. But the reality is you're more than qualified for it. I used to do that. I used to underplay my achievements or the contributions that I had made to things because I didn't feel like I had worked enough or deserved those things. But the truth was the truth. I did that. I participated in that. I contributed to that. And then therefore I should take ownership of what I had done. But for some reason I just couldn't. And so it felt like every opportunity, every open door would slip through my fingers. And it would slip through my fingers because my internal person didn't have capacity for what was happening on the outside. I was a sieve. I couldn't hold water. I said 3, but I'm just going to throw in 2 more. You overcompensate by talking too much, working too hard, and caring too deeply. Sorry, I had to say it. At number 5, you don't take risks. You avoid taking risks because a risk would expose the internal person to an absence of safety. Because you haven't developed safety within yourself, you haven't learned to center yourself and hold space for yourself, you look for external things to secure yourself. And so taking risks where those potential support systems or the scaffolding could be removed is too much for you. The internal emotional person cannot handle that, and so you don't take risks that would bring you outside of that comfort zone. So here's the thing, many of us need to learn how to reframe if we want to start to experience and see the world through a different lens. And this is an example of how you would reframe. Let's say someone rejects you, like the example I gave earlier on in the video. If someone rejects you, your response isn't to tell yourself this is what always happens, or I'm always being rejected. Rather, you say, okay, this person doesn't want this, and that's okay. Someone else will. That is the example of a reframe. The reason why we need to reframe is because many of our experiences, if looked at through the lens of pain, we will only see the negatives. We will only see what continues to perpetuate the lack of change, the hesitation, the toxic behaviors. And we want to change that, right? And so if we want to change that, we have to start looking at our experiences through a different lens. Looking at our experiences through a different lens sometimes means looking at the other lessons that you could learn from that experience as opposed to the dominant lesson that your consciousness picks up on. Reframing is not pretending. Reframing is not delusion. Reframing is not blind optimism. Reframing is taking the same story and extracting the empowering and more positive view of what happened. Rather than being a victim in our story, we get to actually be a victor and a person of choice. And sometimes even if your default is to resort back to not being sure and perhaps even victimhood, you have the opportunity in those moments of victimhood to reframe and to think about the other lessons that can be learned from that experience. So one of the ways that you can actually learn to reframe is first by not dissecting yourself, but dissecting the event or the experience. That looks like, for example, reviewing a scenario, reflecting on the experience, how it made you feel, but not pointing towards yourself. The number one indicator of self-blame and victimhood is actually dissecting yourself, looking at the experience and attributing blame to you rather than reviewing the experience objectively. Do your best to remove identity from your analysis. You are not dissecting you. You are dissecting the experience, and that could be a standalone experience or it could be a trend of experiences, but your job is not to analyze and dissect you. Your job is to review what happened in each of those events and experiences. You can attribute meaning to those things as to why those things happened, but that comes at a later stage. First, don't attack yourself and don't blame yourself. Secondly, I want you to identify the false conclusion. It's really easy to jump to the first conclusion of blaming yourself or telling yourself a lie in the name of what felt true. But let's actually look at that scenario properly. It's easier to say, I can't handle leadership as opposed to I'm not ready for leadership. One is more conclusive than the other. One is a definitive, the other isn't. Saying I'm not ready for leadership closes the door. I don't have to wrestle with the feelings of doing my best and not quite getting it, or struggling or striving for better and not being approved. It's easier to say I'm not made for leadership or leadership is not for me. It's a harder truth to accept that I wasn't ready for leadership. It's a harder truth to say I wasn't prepared, because then you have to take responsibility over the actions and not who you were in that situation. It's important not to lie to yourself or sugarcoat the truth, but at the same time, telling yourself a non-truth in the name of trying to make yourself feel better is only going to make yourself feel worse. When you're reviewing situations, it's good for you to look at what else is true in that event. This person was unkind to me. And also I had a really bad day and I was low on sugar. And so it made for a bad combination. I was already feeling bad, and then this person was unkind to me, and it made me feel even worse about my day. Hello. Every person gets to rewrite the narrative they're going to tell themselves. Every person has power and choice. It's important for you to know that you are an empowered individual and not this victim who's constantly trying to shield themselves and protect themselves from people and things that are going to harm them. No, you are a powerful being with agency over your decisions. And so you get to choose what's going to happen to you. And guess what? People don't waste our time. We allow them to. Did you like that? Did you catch the reframe? When we learn to replace failure with I'm learning, I'm not lovable with I can choose better connections, I'm not likable with I can be more friendly, we actually give ourselves the opportunity to have another chance. It is lazy of us to conclude on things that are not yet concluded on. So here's the truth. Life is going to teach you lessons whether you like it or not, because we're all in this classroom. But you get to choose what you conclude, and you get to choose and evaluate what you're going to take from those lessons. Number one, you are not the conclusion your trauma gave you. You are not the misinterpretation your fear made you experience. And you are not the story your past decided for you. You get to update the story. We all get the opportunity to reinterpret those experiences, not through fear, but through power. And you have permission to grow. You have permission to correct from wrong mistakes. You have permission to grow again, to bloom again, to experience better. And we can't do that if we keep concluding that we're just a bad person or we're just not good enough. We have to make better conclusions. So this is the work of reframing. Many of us are not learning the right lesson. And if we only reframe, we'll be able to gain better insight and learn better lessons. And if we learn better lessons, it affects our belief systems. And once we've affected the belief system, we then have the power and the narrative to change. Because the story we are telling ourselves is not enough anymore. It has created the experiences that we are having. So we need to change the story. And in order to change the story, we have to change the belief. I hope you liked this video. I did. And hey, if you have something to say, like, share, comment below. I hope you were able to stick through. Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please like. And hey, I have a community where we are learning to reframe. We are retraining and weaning our minds off of the lies and converting into truth. So if you are interested in joining that community, click the link below. Would love to have you. Once you get in the group chat, introduce yourself. See you next time.